Welcome to the project Collaborative Global Initiatives. I feel truly honored and deeply grateful for the audience tuning in into this show today because we are going to experience the global nexus of communications in action. Collaborative Global Initiatives is a bridge that unites nations, organizations, and individuals' efforts worldwide to address critical issues such as climate change, poverty alleviation, inequality, good health, and well-being. It aims to make the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals attainable. By encouraging collaboration and resource sharing, these initiatives strive to develop sustainable solutions that benefit communities across borders. Through dialogue and partnership, we foster innovation, encourage cultural exchange, and create a more interconnected and resilient global society, whether through educational programs, environmental projects, or humanitarian efforts. Collaborative global initiatives highlight the strength of unity and the significance of working together for a brighter future. You're watching part 1. Subscribe to our channel so you can be notified of our next episodes. Minority Consulting International, empowering you with knowledge. Welcome to Collective Intelligence. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, which is part of the Global Nexus of Communications. Here we explore ideas that shape our cities, economies, and societies. And today, we are diving into the fascinating world of taxation, urban development, and the policies that define our communities. Joshua, I know you have a wealth of knowledge and experience in this field, but before we get into the big question, let's start with something different. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm doing very well. And how are you?
Very, very good. I'm very happy to have you here. But
Thank
Vincent,
you so much.
thank you. It's an honor for me to have your expertise here with us. And I would like to start with this question for you before we dip into this great subject. If you were a tax policy maker, if your journey in this tax policy urban
Yes.
development were a neighborhood, what kind of place would it be? Uh, Blasting with innovation, rich with history, or perhaps work in progress? Paint us a picture.
Sure. It's funny. It's a long story. I am the director of a NGO, and it's a nonprofit educational research foundation that looks at property taxes and land taxes, and we see how they can be made better. And by better, we mean more transparent and more beneficial to the most people. Many tax systems everywhere in the world benefit only the very few. And this organization was started in 1926, a long time ago, by American elected officials and politicians in one of our states called Pennsylvania. You've heard of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. That's where we started. And progressive Democrat elected officials founded this organization so that we could continue to do research after the city of Pittsburgh adopted this land value tax proposal. And they wanted to spread the word and do objective studies and see if by objectively looking at the numbers, we could repeat the success that was seen in Pittsburgh into other cities. And one thing that I think we do that is helpful and a little different is we do not come in, excuse me, we don't come in from Washington, D.C. to Bogota and say, you do this. We work with local government and we work with local conditions and we listen to local governments, uh, either at the municipal or the provincial level, and try to design a tax system that gets most of its revenue from land value. And it's a slow process, but it's a very objectively precise process. If we do a study, what we what we expect to happen will happen. We just try to um, get the revenue from land, the tax revenue from land, and generally what that does is, as in our United States cities, is it reduces taxes on working people and the bourgeoisie, the middle class, and goes after people that are holding on to lots of valuable land. And I know that's a problem in Colombia as well as the United States, is that people for hundreds of years have been sitting on land, collecting rent, and really not making it very productive. And the idea here is that we make it productive and we prove it to the people so that they support it in a democratic process.
Yeah. And as you said, this project, this it's not a project, but this politics of taxation over the years that we have seen strong taxpayer revolts against property taxation, such as California Proposition 13, for example.
Yes.
Why does taxation generate such strong emotions, and how can policymakers navigate these tensions to implement uh, something different in cities like Pittsburgh?
Yeah. Or Cartagena, wherever. The problem with the property tax that people have always used is it's hundreds of years old. The land tax that we work off started in the 1600s in England, and that worked with the technology then. But now government can choose taxes that the taxpayer never sees. A land tax is clear, it's there. But the problem is you pay it once a year or twice a year, and that's a lot of money at one time. Otherwise, the government would love to, excuse me, tax things like business sales. People go to the store and they buy, food, and they pay a small tax on it, and they pay that small tax every day, and it's either a VAT or it's actually hidden in the price. The sales tax is hidden. People never see how much they actually pay in taxes. With the property tax, it's pretty clear what the tax, how much you're paying, and what you're paying it on. With the sales tax, if you asked an ordinary citizen how much tax last year, nobody would know because it's all a little bit, one day at a time or 2 days at a time. And there are other taxes like business taxes that are done in the background. In other words, the national government tells the business to take their, I don't want to get too jargony,
Mhm.
but they tell a business to take 1% of their gross business receipts and send it to the government. Now, the business may do that, but if there is an extra 1% tax on the business receipts, will make the consumer pay that tax. But they don't have to tell the consumer that they are paying the tax. So the citizens or people that are buying a product will say, "Why is this so expensive?" And the business owner will say, "Well, taxes," but there's no clear path, no clear visible path from the tax to the payment. With the property tax or the land value tax, it's different because it's transparent. And government is, as you know, very afraid of being transparent. And that's government everywhere in the world. Uh, there are places that do business honestly, government and real business honestly, uh, like Singapore, for example. Singapore says we need to pay for services, we need to pay for transit, we need to pay for sewers, and we're going to get the money for it by renting out land that we own. That's their form of land tax, or having a property tax. And the property tax is paid once a month in Singapore. And so that becomes easier for people to pay. They become less angry. Now, in Singapore, they're, as I was saying, they're transparent. And being open, having an open government is very important. A citizen that drives a bus for a living knows, okay, my money from my apartment goes in taxes to the government, and in return, the government shows me what we're paying for with the tax. In other and road system. You're paying for a world's best sewage and water infrastructure system. And so that's what would prefer to see. And we can make the case, or you can make the case, that a land tax is transparent. There's cause and effect, and it's not so apparent. Most taxes are not efficient. Most taxes are not sure. In other words, nobody knows who's going to pay what. And there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of anger. Plus, in a corrupt system, wherever it may be, people have the feeling that the big dogs, uh, that's a slang phrase we use in the United States, that the big dogs don't pay their fair share. And in Singapore, they have the rule of law. And in South Korea, they have the rule of law. And people don't believe that, as far as taxes, it's a very corrupt system. But the rich really don't pay their fair share. And if the rich own the most valuable land, then they pay their fair share, and it becomes obvious.
Yeah, that's something that is worldwide. What you're
Yes.
describing is exactly what is happening in every corner of the world. Yeah, but in,
Yeah.
in this part,
It-
I would like to, as you touch this subject of land value taxation in action and economic incentives and land use, addressing urban decay and revenue generation, political and practical challenges. What can we say, for example, about we have heard about the land value tax that has been implemented in cities like Pittsburgh or Allenton. And what lessons can we learn from these cases and how this land value tax impacted economic development and
right.
municipality?
Uh, I study Pennsylvania cities mostly because I do most of my work in Pennsylvania, which is Allentown, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, a lot of most of the major cities in Pennsylvania. And the reason that land value tax works is because most people that own a home or a business, most of their property is in the building. And our mission is to not tax buildings. Pretty simple. We only want to tax the land that is given value by the community. And that's how it works in Allentown or Harrisburg. In Allentown, if there were no land value tax, the tax on buildings would bring in about 6 times the tax that land brings in.
Wow.
We switch that around so that 10% of property tax comes from buildings. And by doing that, it becomes cheaper to pay your rent because the landlord doesn't have to pay a tax on the buildings. It becomes cheaper to fix up your building because every time in an honest system, when you uh, put up a new building or construct a new building or rehabilitate a new building, under the old system, your taxes go up. That sends a bad message to the people. In other words, the message is if you use your own money and your own labor to improve a property, you're improving the whole community. And the old tax system says, okay, give me more money. It's like
Punishment.
it's like a highway robbery.
It's like
It's
a
like, oh,
punishment to improve your house or your properties.
it is. And that's why citizens, tax rule people say all taxation is theft. Now, I disagree because we need taxation. But when you tell a homeowner, oh, you fixed up your house, give us $2,000 a year more, people get angry and they think that their hard work and their investment stolen. In a sense, they're correct. So what we want to do is remove that bad feeling, that sort of unhappiness that people feel towards paying taxes by putting it on land. And the only people that really get upset about that are those that are holding on to valuable land and not doing much with it. And in Allentown, that was a few parking lot owners and things of that nature, automobile dealers, junkyards, and they ended up paying a lot more. And they said that's not fair. And luckily, this was voted on by the people of Allentown. And the people of Allentown said, why should I pay more because I have a good building? And why should you pay less because you have just, you know, vacant, blighted land? And so the argument is pretty logical, and that's how it's worked. When a city like Allentown reduces the tax on buildings and also reduces other local taxes like business tax or sales tax or an income tax, you get more economic activity in that city. When Allentown brought in the land value tax, it was in very bad shape financially, and it was almost bankrupt. It couldn't pay its bills because nobody was paying the property tax. Nobody wanted to. When they brought in the land value tax, this is a long time ago, 1995, when they yeah, so in the city of Allentown, as I said, people were not building, people were abandoning properties. And once the tax on buildings was lowered and the other business taxes were lowered, we were able to demonstrate, and many other academic researchers were able to demonstrate that people started fixing up buildings and putting up new buildings. So from 1995 until today, Allentown has grown into the fourth largest city in the state of Pennsylvania. It started with us. It started with about 90,000 people, and now it has about 180,000 people. And that growth is due to all the vacant land now being used. And it lowered taxes because you lower taxes on the building, and it lowered taxes for the largest part of the community, small business and homeowners and renters. And we've seen that in every city in Pennsylvania that's done it. And in other cities, nobody knows what they are, but I'll say who they are. Clairton, Aliquippa, who used to be industrial cities, the tax burden with land value tax went directly to people that were owning old industrial sites that had been demolished. And I think what's important and what's inspiring is that most vacant landowners don't live in the city. Uh, so it doesn't matter to them that they're destroying the city. With the land value tax, if you make damage by doing nothing with your land, then you're going to pay for that damage. And that's what's happened in Pennsylvania. In other words, the people that are just, the bourgeoisie or the proletariat, they end up paying less and their community is healthier as a result. And if some corporation in London, England pays more, so what? They're not going to move the land. They can't. So they pay the tax or they sell to somebody who will.
Yeah, it's like traditional property taxes often discourage investment by penalizing property improvements. So I was wondering how does land value taxes shift these incentives? Like, what economic behavior does it encourage among uh, property owners and developers? Because that's something to address this urban decay and speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. Mostly in the United States, you have a city, and then you have the suburbs, the countryside, and in the city, the taxes are very high. So urban sprawl becomes a big problem. People leave the city to avoid paying taxes. And we try to reverse that assumption, that philosophy, by saying if you go into the city, it will be cheaper, less expensive in the long run for you to be in the city rather than outside the city. For example, I know in South America, if you go to the poorest parts of the city, it's going to be on the outside of the city where, lots of hills, not much infrastructure, and not much care taken for the people.
Mhm.
And the rich either live, in the center of the city, where they've got police protection and fire protection, or they live in haciendas, or nice houses outside the city.
Exactly.
But what the land value tax does is instead of driving people into the hillsides where they get flooded out and where they don't even have title to their own land, which is also important, I believe. People should have title to land. The poorest person and the richest person should all have titles to the land. And I know that's a big issue in South America.
Yeah.
I've been,
Equity is a big issue there.
yeah, I mean, I've read DeSoto's work over many years. I don't know if Hernan de Soto is a popular writer in Colombia, but in South America, he's very clear that the poorest people don't have title. And so, with free title to land and no taxation on what you do in that land, you get the promise of the land value tax is a fairer and more prosperous society. But you can't discriminate against poor people, and that's what we try to do. In American cities, the downtowns, center city, they're very nice usually, but the area right around the downtowns are very poor, and they're not owned by the people. The land is not owned by the people that live there.
Yeah, we have
And
many cities that struggle with vacant or underutilized land, leading to urban decay. That's something that is very noticeable in Colombia, South America. And it takes
yeah.
us to this subject of revenue generation versus equity. And that's why I like to study about Henry George's proposal.
Mhm.
I think if we all were to understand what the solution he brings is about, that would be great. So,
Yeah, his solution when it's described to citizens and not academics, they
mm,
get it immediately. They understand intuitively. What happens if I fix up my house? My taxes go up. What happens if the person across the street lets a house they own burn down? Their taxes go down. It's an intellectual disconnect, and people understand that. I mean, there's a reason that when land value tax has come up for a vote, people have voted for it. In Australia, most cities, almost every city and town has a land value tax. And maybe about 50 years ago, these public finance experts said, well, we should tax land and buildings. We should have a traditional property tax. And in a lot of these towns, it was put up for a vote, and the people rejected it. They kept the land value tax because they know that it helped make their community more stable, and it helped the fabric of the community remain intact. And I think that that's the lesson that changing the tax system does. Now, the opposition, though, can say, oh, well, that's communism.
Yeah, so
Well,
yeah, many critics argue that any shift in taxation can create winners and losers, and that's why we need to educate people about how this land value tax balance the need for municipal revenue with concerns about affordability and fairness for different income groups. But that's
yeah,
a subject that is
you're
not
right.
taught in schools or anywhere.
It's not taught well. I mean, if you ask an economist, they'll agree with you. You know, when economists are polled, do you think a tax on land is a good idea? And everybody says, obviously, yes. But they're afraid that it won't happen. And that's a real issue, is that people know how powerful the landowning class is, and they can be small landowners, they can be big landowners.
Yeah,
They
this
spend all their money on politics. They don't spend their money on making the community better.
now that you mentioned political and practical challenges that we have, but I think we're gonna have a second invitation for you to the next show, but I want you to please, please, please help us to understand these political and practical challenges, because despite its
Yeah,
the theoretical benefits, land value taxes faces political and logistical hurdles. So what are the biggest challenges you think we have in expanding land value tax adoption, and how can advocates effectively address them?
I would like to help, because the argument that we can give is, people say you're communist. So we started at a good break point, and I think the question is the big
Political.
yeah, the big objections are going to be communism versus capitalism. And that's always been a big issue in all the Americans. Now, people say, oh, you're communist. And of course, the argument of people that want to tax land value is, we don't want to tax wages, we don't want to tax business, and we don't want to tax productivity. How can that be communist? It's not. What we want to do is let people make money, and make money while paying for essential services and making sure there's plenty of revenue for the good things that everybody will agree that government should do. On the other side, we're called fascists. Not kidding, because oh, if I own land and you want to take it, then you're being just a Nazi. You want to just seize my land. And of course, that's not true, because we don't change who has the title to the land. What we're doing is telling people, not telling them, we're convincing them that everybody rents, they just rent the land in real life. Every bit of land is rented. that rent almost always goes to the landowners. But rent is always there. And what we want to do is not pay the usual taxes and instead pay rent to the community, to the local government. And that rent pays for services, and it's essentially a user fee for the land. And if people don't get upset and angry first, usually that argument works okay. I can tell you when it comes to paradoxes that in Connecticut or Philadelphia, we got the most official support from the homeless community, the homeless activists. And we also got the most support from the Chamber of Commerce and from the Real Estate Association. You would not think they would cooperate, but on the issue of land value taxation, they do cooperate, because land value taxation and Georgism, it promotes the best instincts of capitalism, and it encourages the best instincts of socialism, which is to share the wealth that is commonly held and commonly created. And that common wealth is land. So it always shocks opponents, and sometimes it works, when they find that the allies in land value taxation are right-wing capitalists and left-wing socialists, because it achieves both of what they want. And so that's, I think, an argument. If you can be heard, if we can get into the debate, that's a persuasive argument. In the United States, we have right-wing economists like Milton Friedman and left-wing economists like Joseph Stiglitz, and they agree on nothing, but they agree that collecting land values in place of other taxes is a good idea.
Yeah, because imagine, like, if you have your home, somebody comes and says, hey, you already paid taxes for your home. Now you have to pay taxes for what you are earning, for your income. Plus, you have to pay taxes for what you produce. And a person with, like, let's say, with this news would say, how come I'm gonna do that? It's my work, it's my effort, it's my production. I'm not gonna pay that. But then
Exactly.
we don't do it. We're paying taxes just because, and we don't know where they go. Like, especially in Colombia, South America, I don't see a very clear or transparent system that allows us to see where do the money go, or what is this. I'm saying this is not about like the government. It's about the system that doesn't allow people to see where the money goes. Sometimes we have corruptions as everywhere in the world, but it should be something that allows people to see what are they doing with that money. Because as you have seen, we have the extremes, poor on this side and rich on this side. So where is equity? Where is the investment that we're supposed to be paying? And that's worldwide, I guess.
It's funny. It's an important thing that you mentioned. I work in Philadelphia. I'm near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and all this money goes into the government, and it's been a city since 1700. It's a very old American city, and nobody has been able to follow the money. And following the money is a key to a good democracy. And so if the money comes from, say, the property tax into the city, where does it go? Sometimes it's hard to know. But now we have a budget system that's public, and it's very transparent. And so in Philadelphia, I can say uh, the city owns a lot of valuable football seats at the football stadium. And the taxpayers pay for those seats so that rich out-of-towners can come and, and make deals. And so nobody knew that. Now it's based on the transparent budgeting. Transparency is a sister or a brother of efficient and good taxation. And there's so many secrets probably in most government taxes and in budgets, and it's hard to find out. I know that in Mexico, when people inquire about where government money is going, they can get killed because it's going to the cartels or something like that. So it's sometimes can be a very dangerous thing. But I think that that's a very it's essential. It's crucial for the success of any good tax system is transparency.
Very difficult. Yeah, before we finish this program, that I love talking about the future of municipal finance with increasing urbanization and financial pressures on cities. How do you see the land value tax evolving as part of a broader strategy for sustainable urban development, for example?
Yeah, I'll tell you what we're doing now is we're trying to expand it to more cities, but also expand land value taxation to higher levels of government. Not just cities, but also the states, because the states cover more land, they cover more types of economies, and then the state can reduce all these taxes that exist, especially on income, and labor. That's a problem. One thing we like is the country of Estonia. And I think you saw part of my presentation maybe several months ago where I talked about Estonia. Now, Estonia used to be a part of communist Russia. And after they threw out the communists, then the capitalists came in and said, oh, you have to use our tax system now. And we'll put in an income tax and all these other taxes. But Estonia was open to the Henry George idea. They learned about it, were educated about it by academics. And that's why local government in Estonia is funded by the land value tax. There's no other tax. And what does that do? It makes a requirement of a landowner that they use the land to the best of their ability. And the whole point behind a land value tax is to have land be utilized to the best it can be. And the problem we have today is that land is not utilized to its best capacity. So people go to economically and ecologically sensitive areas, and ecological sensitive areas are being destroyed. Look at what's happened in Brazil. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the land is used to its capacity in a democratic sense. If people want to build and want to use that land, then the land value tax will almost force it, because if you tax land high enough, people will either walk away from it or do something with it. And we don't want people to sit on it. And in North and South America,
Yeah,
the lesson
that's
has always been sit on land and become rich. That's wrong.
that's not justice in economic. It's just not fair.
No, it's not. It's not. And it makes us Europe Junior. We don't want to be another version of Europe. Europe still has a terrible system of land tenure. It's changing, but what we want to do is let everybody thrive to become the person or business person that they can be without inefficiency and without economic drag and without corruption. And the land value tax does that.
Yeah, it's just a subject that I think we all need to sit down and start spreading out around the world. And that's why we have these projects. In my case, I'm just inviting people that are experts. I learn with you, and then we just go and share with our people. And that's something that can be done.
And keep asking questions. I want to help forever.
Thank you so very much.
Land Value Capture, Tax Research Project Questionnaire, the International Union for Land Value Taxation. Most often, the taxable capacity of land is such that land value capture can enable local governments to fulfill its basic responsibilities for the provisioning of basic services for all, by Joshua Vincent, Director, Center for the Study of Economics. Density is valuable, and that value is reflected in the price of land. In the urban centers, there are enormous rents on rising land value. The taxation of land appreciation offers huge scope for financing the cost of urban infrastructure, by Paul Collier, Professor of Economics and Public Policy, University of Oxford, Advisor to the IMF Strategy and Policy Department, Advisor to the Africa region of the World Bank, author of The Bottom Billion. It is important that rent of land be retained as a source of government revenue, by Franco Modigliani, Nobel Prize in Economics. How much revenue can land yield by itself? I assure you, it can yield more than local governments need. The taxable capacity of land is camouflaged in our times by a consistent modern tendency to under-assess it, by Mason Gaffney. The Taxable Capacity of Land, The Corruption of Economics, Essays on Solving the Unsolvable. This article is from the International Union for Land Value Taxation at www.theiu.org.
And keep asking questions. I want to help forever.
Thank you so very much. Let's do part number 2. In that part, we
Absolutely.
will invite Christian, and then we will see 3 countries there. And then soon we will be inviting some more people because, I've been learning a lot with Alana. She's like my mentor and my inspiration to work on this. It's just great to have her. And all this knowledge becomes collective wisdom. And that's what I think is the key. That brings us together to bring all these solutions that impact worldwide, because the problem that we are seeing right now is everywhere in the world. It's not because this is United States and that is Colombia. It's the system that is not working. And
It is.
it doesn't make sense to me that we are just like kind of sleeping or something. We're just like, okay, but we need to ask why. And when we understand the reason why, then we can start like being more active, like kind of like wake up.
You're right. Too many people assume that's the way it is. That's the way it has to be. It's not true. In the early part of the 20th century, Argentina was probably the most Georgious country in the world, from 1895 to 1920. And Argentina became one of the richest countries in the world.
Wow.
Because their tax structure was very Georgist. Landowners, by that I mean, people growing cattle and beef, people growing agriculture, had to pay a tax on the land. In Buenos Aires and other cities, if you owned land, you had to pay a fee to the city. And unfortunately, the powers of reaction said, I can't get rich quick this way, because Georgism compels everybody to be productive for their own good and for the community's good. And
Fair
that's,
share.
yeah, that's the effort we have to make. I'm going to be, next time I'd like to talk about Argentina more, because
Cool.
there was a real movement in the early 20th century to change the economy, and it worked. But then the British companies and Italian companies came in and tore it apart.
Yeah, and Argentina also has this author that I'm studying. His name is Silvio Gesell.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he has a good proposal too, because I was talking to one of our natives in Colombia, and this person has a system. And I'm going to make the point here where I'm bringing Argentina and Colombia together, because this indigenous population have their own bill. They are not depending on the dollar, because that's what happens in Colombia. If the dollar raises, then prices raise up.
Yes.
If we depend on the coin, or I mean, a universal coin for everybody, I don't think that's fair. So they, in this community, created their own way of exchanging. They are trading food for this bill. It's their own money. And that's what Silvio Gesell talks about. So I was thinking, in one of those moments that I have of inspiration, I was like, what if we were to sit down with Henry George, Silvio Gesell, and then we invite like different thinkers or philosophers. Let's bring Martin Luther King, let's bring John F. Kennedy, let's bring all of these people that have created this visionary world where everybody fits, and fair economy, justice, everything plays a role in everybody, and everybody's included. And that's kind of like the idea of doing this global nexus of communications, because although they are physically dead, they are still alive. And there are many people that are bringing them to life again. So in this global nexus of communication, I have many projects that I'm sharing with everybody. And we have the next event that is coming through global initiatives. It's a collaborative project, and you will see a little bit more about it. But yeah, let's do the part number 2, and let's talk about Argentina, and let's bring Costa Rica and Colombia, because I think Christian brings Costa Rica, right?
Yes.
And then compare that.
And they have good information up there, as far as the technical information. I know that we have to persuade people on the philosophy, but having technical expertise is very good. After World War I, Hungary had the single tax for about 4 years. And interestingly, the communist revolution there overturned this single tax Henry George movement, unfortunately. And I think the fact that we're on the side of justice, it makes it difficult, but it also helps. Jose Marti, the father of Cuban independence, he was a Georgist. That's how he started. And a lot of other people came into justice through Henry George, not through Karl Marx, and not through George Washington, but through Henry George. And I think that that's a new approach we can take, because other approaches are failing, and they're failing quickly.
Yeah, we have also, I interviewed Carlos Fernando Luch and Guillermo Andro. They were sharing all this wonderful work that they are doing in Argentina. So we might invite them again to see how we can get together and see what comes up. What do you think?
I look forward to working with them if I can help.
Yeah, that would be great. I would like to thank you for your time, for your expertise, for sharing this moment and knowledge and wisdom with me. This is going to be great for everybody to know that this movement of these people are studying, Henry George and all these authors, and that we can learn from all of us. And thank you so much. It's an honor for me, Joshua. It was
Thank you.
great.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you today.
Oh, thank you. That's the idea. Let's work together on some conclusions here. Type in the chat your thoughts and let us know your opinions. As a suggestion, this subject could be taught at schools. For instance, land value taxation in primary school classrooms could be an innovative way to introduce young students to concepts of Henry George on economics, geography, and civic responsibility. By using engaging activities and simple explanations, teachers can help students understand how land value taxation works and why it might be important for communities. In sum, by using engaging activities, teachers can also explain Henry George's philosophy. One approach could be to create a classroom simulation where students are assigned roles as property owners, city planners, and tax assessors. Through role playing, they can explore how land value taxes are calculated based on the location and value of the land, rather than buildings on it. This hands on experience can help demystify the concept and show how value taxes can promote efficient land use and discourage speculation. Additionally, teachers could incorporate storytelling to highlight real world examples of how land value taxation has been implemented in different places. Stories about communities that have been benefited from such a tax system can inspire students and spark discussions about equity, sustainability, and urban development. By introducing these concepts in a fun and accessible way, primary school students can gain early insights into economic principles and develop an appreciation for how taxes can be used to support public goods and services. This foundational knowledge can empower them to become informed citizens who understand the impact of economic policies on their communities. Do you know how can we connect the dots to the common rent solution in your location? Have you read Progress and Poverty by Henry George? Thank you, Joshua Vincent, and lovely audience. See you in part 2. This was another episode of Global Nexus of Communications. See you soon.